A reps spend way more time in preparation than B and C reps. If they happen to be working with a publicly traded company, have they listened to and read the earnings report? Have they dug into what the CEO and the C-suite is talking about? There's just so much data out there that A reps understand how to use that data to fully understand the account.
So Matt, what is your story in sales up until this point?
Yeah, well, it's a long and winding road, Theo. We probably don't have the time to go through the whole thing, but it started in 1999 selling digital ads for a company that no longer exists called GoToNet, and two search engines called Metacrawler and Dogpile that predated Google. So it was an interesting
Wow.
time to start my sales career with a very new piece of technology and a very new industry segment with digital advertising. But learned a ton and had a great time doing it. My career really kind of got going when I started working at Microsoft in 2007. And I worked for Microsoft for 10 years total, two stints, a 7-year stint and a 3-year stint. I was an account executive there selling digital media. I also ran sales teams across products like Xbox. Had a great time, learned a ton, kind of grew up in my career at Microsoft, and still one of the something that I really look back fondly upon in my experience, especially from learning how to manage people and learning how to manage sales teams. For the past year and a half or so, I've been at Sprinkler, where I lead a global strategic account team here in the central region of North America. So we're responsible for about 12 of Sprinkler's largest 70 accounts globally. And that's, that role, that job has been a tremendous opportunity and challenge for me. I've learned a ton, and we were able to take the company public back in June, which was an awesome kind of milestone for my career.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So how old are you when you started at Microsoft?
So I had just turned 30 when I started at Microsoft. Yeah.
What was it like? What year was that you joined Microsoft?
2007.
2007. What was it like then joining a global leader like Microsoft back then?
Yeah, it was great. We had an awesome team, and back then it was still kind of the portal wars were going on. So it was MSN, Yahoo, AOL.
Yeah, of course.
The big three, and then Google was solidifying itself as a leader in the search space at that period as well. Facebook had just started, and one of the funny things is that as a sales rep at Microsoft in 2007, I was responsible for selling Facebook advertising. So Microsoft had taken an investment position in Facebook, and as part of that deal and that investment, our sales team repped the inventory across Facebook. So I feel like I was, one of the first Facebook sellers as well, which is kind of funny to think about now.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I can remember, I can just about remember MSN. I'm old enough for that, but other than that, that was my sort of time, and then Facebook took over. So that must be super interesting for you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So imagine at Microsoft, you came across some high performance reps in your time. So that's a perfect segue into our questions on upskilling reps. So what do you think really defines an A player?
So if I had to boil it down to one thing, and there are multiple dimensions to this, which we'll get into, but if I had to boil it down to one thing, it's preparation. And preparation spans two aspects. There is the body and mind preparation, and then there's the work preparation and the account preparation.
Okay.
So we can start in the body and mind side of it quickly, and then transition over if you'd like to. But I kind of break it down from do you show up every day as the best version of yourself? Like hard stop.
Okay.
And there are ways in which you can do that. Are you sleeping well? Are you exercising? Are you taking care of your body nutritionally? Are you eating well? Are you staying hydrated? Do you have a mindfulness practice? These are some of the areas that I'll dig into with reps if there is if there's a performance issue. Because a lot of times it can come down to, how do you yourself as a person show up every day? Are you preparing yourself for the stress and the strain that you're going to put on your body being a sales rep?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that you brought that up, because I think it's a key area, especially in the last 10 years, but particularly in COVID, like to be mentally prepared and turn up. I mean, you can turn up physically, It's easy to
Yep.
turn up physically, you get the tube ride to work, whatever, but mentally, that's where I'm assuming you mean an A player really turns up. That turning up to work mentally every day,
Yeah.
5 days a week,
Yeah.
every single month, year. That's where it adds up, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you'll hear, when you dig into it with your reps, you'll hear, no, I'm not sleeping great. I'm up late. I'm going out. I'm only getting a few hours of sleep every night. I think that's a problem across our industry. Not even our industry. I think it's a problem across the global workforce. And to have an understanding of how to take care of your body, and then how the decisions that you make and can impact how you show up to work the next day. That's the baseline. And after that, from a mind standpoint, like, are you giving yourself grace and freedom throughout the day to take breaks, take a 10-minute walk? I'll do calls that there's no screen share. I'll do calls and walk the dog. Like,
Really?
I feel like, yeah, getting out of my space, I think my entire family, my kids, I have 3 of them. They think
Yeah.
my work is like, it lives, all my colleagues and partners live inside my computer.
Yeah.
And if you don't give yourself that space to get outside, you're missing a lot. Sometimes I'll come up with creative ideas just on a call, walking around the block with my dog, getting
Interesting.
outside and seeing the trees and just being in nature a little bit. It does a ton for your mental health, and just gets you out of the sitting for 8 to 12 hours a day.
Interesting. So we spoke earlier about, previously, sorry, that you've worked from home for quite some time now with Sprinkler. Is this this kind of taking more time to yourself and taking time to go for a walk when you're working? Is this something that you've started to introduce because of COVID, the pandemic, or was this something that you did prior to this, let's say Microsoft, etc.?
Yeah, it's accelerated during the
Okay.
pandemic, but it's something that I've always done. When we were at Microsoft, primarily I was in an office environment. The last 2 years I worked from home out of those 10, but for the first 8, I was in offices. So that would be a little easier. I would do walking one-on-ones with people on my team. Like, I just got to
Nice.
get out of the building. Let's just go for a walk. And I was in LA for part of that. So it was always a lot easier in LA to go for a walk than it is in Chicago sometimes, depending on part of the year. But yeah, always changing your environment and changing where you are and what's around you, I think is important. I mean, I'll take calls, like I said, on a walk. I'll take calls sitting on the front steps of my house. I'll take
Yeah.
calls just in the backyard. Just changing your environment, I think, does a lot. So yeah, I've done it at Microsoft. It's definitely accelerated the frequency since I started Sprinkler.
Yeah, that's great, because there's a different type of, I mean, imagine a leadership you had maybe earlier on in your career. It was like, if you took breaks, take the odd half an hour break here, but like work on the phones.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's changed so much recently. And then it brings into this argument of input output, right? And
Yeah.
I can kind of guess where you stand on that. But where, just for the purpose of the vlog, where do you stand on that?
As far as, having to be strapped to a seat for 12 hours to get the output needed.
Yeah, basically, like, if you had one rep that was, it kind of answers itself, doesn't it? But it's good to hear another sales leader speak about it. People always think that you need to put X amount of inputs, get output, but there's ways of cutting corners. If you probably said that 15 years ago, people have gone, taking a sharp breath. But in reality, if you can cut corners and still get the same results, that's the way, especially SaaS is going, I find.
Yeah, so I've felt that digging in on the people that don't take breaks and are strapped to their seat for 12 hours a day, they tend
Yeah.
to do the same thing over and over again. They fall into repeatable patterns. And as soon as you're falling into a repeatable pattern, I get to the office at 8, I check my email until 8:30. Like, if you're doing the same thing every single day in a repeatable way, you have hard time coming up with creative ways to sell, creative ways to bring value to your customers, creative ways to partner better internally. And you end up doing the same thing over and over again. And I found that those reps end up selling the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Their sales process follows a very repeatable cadence. At the end of every quarter, they're either faced with the same challenges that they were the previous quarter about bringing in deals. They just do the same thing the same way over and over again with the same results. Conversely, when you find people that have more of a growth mindset and willing to try new things and get out of their desk and take a walk and take those mental breaks, they tend to come up with more creative ways to accomplish their goals, and more creative ways to get deals across the finish line, or create more ways, unique points of view that they can bring to their customers to help them solve a business challenge that they're having. So it's just real important.
That's great. So if we step aside from the mind and body side of things for a
Yep.
moment, and we look at the metrics side of things, what are the primary metrics you're monitoring, and what are the primary metrics you feel that AREPs consistently crush every day, every week, every month, every quarter?
And I'm gonna use the same word, so it's preparation, and how preparations come across from a metric standpoint to me. How many discovery calls are they having with their customers or their prospects? And then how are they converting those discovery calls into new business meetings to find new opportunities within an account? And the more time, A reps spend way more time in preparation than B and C reps. And that all comes down to, there's account research and preparation that goes into that. Or if they happen to be working with a publicly traded company, have they listened to and read the earnings report? Have they dug into what the CEO and the C-suite is talking about? Have they listened to talks they've done? I mean, with the vast amount of information there is out there of a CEO of X or Y company, or the CMO of X or Y company, the CIO giving a talk or an article, or giving their perspective on the industry or their business. There's just so much data out there that A reps understand how to use that data to fully understand the account. Where's the business been? Where's it going? What are the challenges that they're facing? And those types of insights, spending all that time up front, means that when you get into a discovery call with some of the business leaders across that organization, you can ask really thoughtful questions. Hey, I heard your CEO talking about this. What does that mean to you? What are the initiatives that you're working on that help ladder up to this strategy that your CEO is talking about? So it leads to such amazing discovery questions, and it helps you find that pain. It helps you find where they're challenged, how maybe they're not participating in the success of the organization the way they could because of a few things. And then you just sit in that pain and you live in it. And you live in that pain for as long as you can. And you ask the question why 7 or 8 times until you can really get that person talking and opening up about what the pain means to their business and how it's impacting their business, and how, hey, if we could fix this or that thing, what would be the meaningful outcomes of that? And living in it. And I feel like A reps don't jump to a solution.
Okay.
You'll be on a call with a rep and somebody will say, yeah, I'm having a really hard time automating this workflow. And all of a sudden the C rep will go, oh, we've got that. We have workflow automation tools that'll solve that for you right now. Can we schedule a demo and we'll walk you through how we do that? And A rep, a customer will say, hey, I'm having a problem with this workflow automation. And the A rep will say, wow, that's really interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And then they'll tell a little bit more. And then the A rep will say, so that's impacting your ability to, work collaboratively across your organization. What other types of impact does that have to your business? And then they'll say something else. And then they'll say, well, why is that important to you specifically in your role and with your team? And it just by digging, you turn a $20,000 deal into $1 million deal just by spending more time in that pain and fully understanding the challenge and the metrics and the impact to the business.
So the key for an A player the difference between an A player and a B player is preparation, of course, but an A player will understand the pain of the prospect customer, and that's what makes him or her an A player. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it might take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 discovery meetings. A B player, to my example earlier, might say, okay, after a 30-minute discovery call, okay, I got it. Can we schedule a meeting? I understand what your challenge is. The A player will say, hey, I've got a couple of more questions here. I'd love to talk to my internal team a little bit and to some experts within our organization that have faced similar problems to see if they have any other questions or if we have any other points of view on this challenge you're facing. And in my experience, that customer will say, oh yeah, absolutely. Let's schedule 30 minutes in a couple of days or next week. And then maybe you bring somebody else from your organization into that next session and you ask further questions and discover further and live in that pain a little bit longer. So that by the time you get to the point where you say, okay, we'd love to show up and present you with our point of view on what we understand the challenges that you're facing and how we could potentially help that meeting, when you get to that meeting, what we call a new business meeting, the thoughtful point of view is appreciated tremendously, and the deal accelerates quicker from that point.
Nice. So like we're saying there, an A player will treat a human as a human and not as a potential sale.
Yeah.
And the less capable reps will always see it as a potential sale, right?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. I've been thinking a lot about that recently. This idea of we all sell to humans. You
Yeah.
could, if you're a direct to consumer company or you're a B2B company, I think we all sell to human beings. And within the B2B space, I think sometimes we forget that, and we forget that we're selling to humans, and there
Yeah.
are emotions involved, and there's pride involved, and there are, work performance issues and problems that they're dealing with. And I think that's another way of, like, being really human is extremely important. And you can set that up front. And if you do set that up front, then you come across as a lot more authentic, and it's going to be, they're going to understand that you are really here to help them within their business and provide value to them, as opposed to, hey, I need to get this deal this quarter so that I can, hit a number.
Yeah, especially if you're dealing with kind of other, experienced salespeople. If that's you're doing B2B, like, people would have been around the block long enough to understand what you're at, and they'll be able to figure you out soon enough.
Yeah.
So that's typically how it goes. But on the A player and B player, I think a B player, like we have C players, B players, A players. B player is someone who performs and kind of beats it, his or her target 1 month, misses it. There's another 2 months, misses it.
Yep.
C player is one that doesn't actually get there and eventually try to become a B player or is fired or sacked.
Yep.
How often do A players come around? Like, maybe at Sprinkler now or other organizations. Like, what percentage of the team do you think are A players?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think it depends. From what I've seen, like, if you can have 30-40% be A players across a team, and then have the rest be B. I mean, C players, I think you need to manage out and understand what their motivation is for why they're doing the job in the first place. And just be super transparent on what the expectations are. And if they're willing to do the work and meet the expectations, you can move a C player to a B player for sure. The B player to an A player, that transition is all, like, it's just what I said. It's all about the preparation, one word. B players typically don't want to put in the extra work to fully prepare and understand and have a deep understanding of their customer's business. They know it well enough to, like you said, have a good quarter and have a down quarter. They don't know it well enough to be able to smooth out the peaks and troughs that happen throughout the course of a year and have consistent performance.
Okay, that's brilliant. And my last question for you is, how do you distinguish between an individual's weakness and a sales team's weakness?
Well, the easy answer would be just look at the data and the revenue and see performance quarter over quarter and what accounts are growing and what accounts are not. And that's probably a good way to initially triage it. But until you meet with and speak with and get to know the individuals on the team, it's hard to fully appreciate what's going on. You have to know, like we just talked about selling to humans, you have to understand your people as humans.
True.
You have to understand what motivates them. I mean, early in my career, I was shocked when my perception was that anybody that was in sales was fully motivated by money. That's it.
Yeah.
And, that was a hard lesson for me to learn, that, there are people that are not motivated by money. They might be motivated by closing a big deal or recognition or being part of a team or helping a company succeed. And that's what drives them. And until you kind of understand and get underneath the motivations of each member on your team, you'll never really have a good sense of why a team is or is not performing.
That's great. So building a relationship, I mean, it's a great example now with Sprinkler, in your time at Sprinkler. Has that been, a key for you, is to build relationships with every rep that you're associated with, to understand them slightly, what makes them tick, what do they want from this? And
this might be a US centric example or way to look at it, but maybe not. First thing you have to do, what I say, is win the locker room. I'm not sure if that translates, which means that you've got to be together in that locker room, understanding that we're all in this space together. We're all playing this game together. And just asking the simplest question is, how can I help? I've gotten
Yeah.
feedback from people that I've managed that have told me, I said, hey, what's different me than your previous manager? Like, why? We've got good chemistry. We have a great team going. What's going on? And the first thing, most of the time, the sales rep will say to me, well, the first time we met, you asked me how you could help. And that just meant a lot to me, which means you cared about me and you cared about my business and you cared about, what I was trying to do in my career. So maybe it's simple, but it's been a big part of how I feel like I've been able to win the locker room at multiple organizations, including Sprinkler.